As I look at the party today, the party is fractured. And the party needs to look at itself and ask itself, what is it that we represent? Who is it that we represent?
Former Quebec Premier Jean Charest launching his bid to be the next Conservative leader last night in Calgary. There are 5 contenders, including Ontario MPP Roman Baber, MPs Leslyn Lewis and Pierre Poilievre. Brampton Mayor Patrick Brown will launch his campaign on Sunday. Also considering a run are MP Scott Aitchison and former Cabinet Minister Peter MacKay. 3 people who know the ins and the outs of the Conservative Party are here. Former Conservative Cabinet Minister James Moore. Catherine Lubier is a former advisor to Prime Minister Stephen Harper and Quebec Premier François Legault. And Michael Solberg is a former Conservative staffer. Welcome to all 3 of you. Michael, I'm going to start with you to talk about Jean Charest. He had his big launch event last night after all of this build-up. How would you say the campaign launch is going?
Well, I mean, there's only a handful of really kind of premier political tacticians of renown within the Conservative coalition. Jason Kenney would certainly be one of them. James Moore. But absolutely, Jean Charest would be considered among them. And there's no question why he launched here in Calgary. Very deliberate and certainly symbolic. Mr. Charest absolutely needs to start a campaign where he's immediately appealing to Westerners and to Western Albertans. And launching his campaign in kind of the beating heart of conservatism here in Calgary was done by no mistake. Certainly a deliberate move. And I'm sure he'll have a message for Western Canadians moving forward. He has to.
James, I want to ask you about how the race is shaping up so far in terms of what the question is for Conservatives. Obviously, Monsieur Charest is getting a lot of attention because he has the biggest national profile. He's the closest to being a household name, although Pierre Poilievre, also a well-known name and certainly very well-liked among Conservatives. You know, is that what this race is? Is it sort of a 2-horse race? And if so, what does that tell us about the decision the Conservative Party has to make?
Well, the field is still being flushed out, so it's too hard to at this stage to handicap, other than frankly to say that I think Pierre Poilievre does have a strong lead because he's clearly been planning this for quite some time, and it shows in terms of the quality of his campaign so far. But look, I think most Conservative Party members want an alternative to the Liberal Party, not an alternative Liberal Party. They want a genuine Conservative Party that is national in scope and that can bring all Conservatives back together. Leadership campaigns are always going to be divisive. They're always going to, push the margins of the kind of issues and topics that maybe people are comfortable addressing and talking about. But I think it's fundamentally important because I think the next election campaign will likely be a change election campaign. Justin Trudeau is clearly in the back 9 of his time as Prime Minister of the country. He looks to be running out of steam, running out of energy, and running out of focus, running out of ideas. And I think the Canadian public, more than in the last 2 cycles, will be really looking for an alternative to the Liberal Party that is prepared to govern in substance, temperament, tone, and I think that will be the forefront because in this race, the Conservative Party will have the eyes of not just Conservative Party members, but Canadians who are genuinely looking for an alternative government looking upon it.
Catherine, for me, this will be the 3rd leadership race for the Conservative Party that I have covered in the last 5 years. And I do get a bit of a Groundhog Day feeling insofar as my editors keep asking me, okay, well, tell us what this says about the fight for the soul of the Conservative Party. Based on what we know about how this race is shaping up so far, I mean, is this some people have said it's populism versus statesmanship. Some people have said, ultimately this is still the old split. Reform Progressive. What do you think about where the debate is in the Conservative Party right now about what kind of party it wants to be?
Well, I think members will first of all look at, as James alluded to, who can beat the Liberals at the next election. That's the main thing. And the main challenge is the coalition of support that each of them can get within the membership of the Conservative Party and, of course, the caucus. The issues at stake, I mean, members will want to send a leader in that seat that can talk to issues that matter to Canadians, historic inflation, the energy question, not only the price of energy, but also the whole question of the carbon tax and food prices and so on. And also who can lead this country in a tumultuous time like we are living right now.
I do want to talk about some of the other contenders in the race, but Michael, Catherine sort of leads us so beautifully into this question of the issues that will animate the race. Certainly pocketbook issues, I think things that Canadians want to hear their politicians speaking about, but I'm curious what you think are going to be the ones where we really see a difference of opinion. Is it Bill 21? Is it carbon pricing? What are the issues you're really going to be watching to see a real meaningful substantive debate?
No, for sure. And I think it'll take some time for the campaign narrative to really define itself. And the work in moving in that direction has already begun. But the bread and butter issue for Conservatives will be on things like energy policy, affordability, how to address inflation. Obviously, climate policy and the debate around carbon pricing. We'll probably see quite a bit of differentiation eventually between the Poilievre and Charest camps on at least that issue. But it will really come down to, honestly, the ballot box question will be, who can beat Justin Trudeau in the next election? As James already identified, the Prime Minister is on the back nine of his tenure as Prime Minister. I think by all accounts, we can agree on that. And Jean Charest is now already crafting his campaign with literally the slogan, built to win. And I think Conservatives in general are tired of coming up short on election day. It's been a couple of disappointing results in the past number of years. And the Conservatives cannot go through another leadership race without growing its membership across the country and without having not just a message for the rank and file members across the country, but for the general electorate. We are in a minority parliament. The next election is right around the corner, and whoever is successful in winning this leadership race will only have a relatively short period to make those introductions to Canadians as leader of the Conservative Party, and the Conservative base and the Conservative coalition from coast to coast to coast needs to be ready. And this new leader needs to be ready to bridge the divide that we've seen in the party for so long and have a positive forward-looking message for Canadians. It's not just about the Conservative base this time. It needs to be about the broader electorate.
James, certainly Jean Charest is pitching himself as somebody who has a positive unifying. I mean, that's really what we've heard him talking about. Does Pierre Poilievre have a positive message, do you think, for Conservatives and Canadians? He is known as being a bit elbows up. Certainly you've had some experience with him. Positive? Is that what he represents?
Yeah. Well, look, his role, like his profile and his role as the finance critic, have made him look like the attack dog of the official opposition. But that's his job. Mm-hmm. Without, Pierre Poilievre brought out the We Charity scandal, brought down Bill Morneau, took on the Kielburgers, attacked, I think, effectively Mark Carney when his first parliamentary. So people have seen Pierre Poilievre in that light. But I think he understands his challenge, which is to elevate his game from being an opposition critic to being a continental nation's prime minister. And that's why his campaign slogan is Pierre Poilievre, Prime Minister. He understands that he's aspiring to make a jump in terms of his perception and his capacity that people are going to have to measure him by. And so, if you look at his campaign and his launch video where he talks about cost of living issues and people wanting to be homeowners, not just renters, and people aspiring to do more, I think that's all, I think, a positive message. And I also think there was a moment at his rally, I think, earlier this week in Saskatchewan. So he's in Saskatoon in front of a largely entirely Anglophone audience. And then en français, he says to the group, we need to defend both of Canada's official languages and to do so proudly as a matter of Canadian strength. I think that's something that maybe Pierre Poilievre 10 years ago wouldn't have said, but somebody who aspires to be the prime minister of a country like ours that's made up as it has been, that's a moment of leadership, and I think of maturity in Pierre Poilievre that I think is good news for those who are looking to support his leadership.
Catherine, I do want to just ask you about the rest of the field, because there has been so much discussion of Pierre Poilievre. Everyone I talk to in all of the camps will acknowledge that he is the front runner in all of this. And then Monsieur Charest has gotten a lot of attention, again, because he's had such a long public profile. But talk to me about Leslyn Lewis, about Patrick Brown, Roman Baber, how any of these folks might play a role in this race.
Well, I think it's first of all extremely healthy to have more than one competitor, and a lot of things can happen on the ground when there's a leadership race. The balance of everybody's support. I think Leslyn has launched a campaign that's rather low profile, but she's shown that she has leadership qualities. She can take her place, and when you're a woman, you always bring something to the table that looks like winning cards. So I think she can demonstrate what she's able to do in this leadership race. Patrick Brown, well, there's baggage. And also the party rules this time, if I'm not mistaken, do not favor him because membership must be sold through the party portal. But it is a fact that Patrick Brown and members out of Ontario remain central to any future campaign. It's also about the machinery behind their campaign, as in the leadership campaign, but later in an election. Who is working for them? What do they have in terms of support members already, pieces of the coalition? Pierre Poilievre has a very powerful machine out there. Mr. Charest is a very experienced politician. I think we shouldn't underestimate what he can do. But Mr. Poilievre has 40 and more, maybe Christian Paradis today as a member, but certainly MPs. And he has Jenny Byrne in his ranks, and she's delivered victories before. So that is also an important factor that the less visible candidates don't have.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we're going to have to leave it there, but months ahead to talk about this, and there's going to be a lot to talk about. Thank you so much, Michael Solberg, Catherine Loubier, and James Moore.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.